Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, made his pitch to the Republican Party and to the United States, American voters, with the keynote speech at the party's national convention. So let's bring in our panel to give us a sense of what they thought of what he said. Brian Stelter is a special correspondent for Vanity Fair. Tia Mitchell is a Washington correspondent for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Tia is at the RNC in Milwaukee. And Richard Madan is our correspondent in D.C. So, Tia, I wouldn't mind starting with you. J.D. Vance just spoke. Have a listen to what he said, and then we'll talk.
Mamaw raised me as my mother struggled with addiction. Now, she once told me, when she found out that I was spending too much time with a local kid who was known for dealing drugs, that if I ever hung out with that kid again, she would run him over with her car. That's true. And she said, JD, no one will ever find out about it. Now, thanks to that mamaw, things worked out for me.
So, Tia, working the room there, he's a good storyteller, compelling story about his upbringing. What's your sense of the effect that may or may not have?
I think that the crowd, as you all heard, ate that story up. I think it's very classic American to have like a no-nonsense grandma that, is very protective of the child they're helping to raise. So in that way, it helped him connect, and a bit of nostalgia, some humor. So it played really, really well. And again, this is about J.D. Vance relating to working class, salt of the earth, poor Americans. And so that is what his story is all about, making that connection. And it did seem to go over really, really well tonight.
So it's true. That was what he was emphasizing the most. And Brian, I don't know how many times we heard him repeat Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio.
Right.
Why those states?
Right, emphasizing these states. They're sometimes called the blue wall. Pennsylvania, for example, a state that Biden would need to win to get over that electoral college threshold. J.D. Vance is going to be deployed in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. And you heard him reference those states because, honestly, there's so many Americans who feel like the elites in Washington, the government, does not know what they feel, does not know what they experience. For example, Vance talking about the opioid epidemic and drug abuse. Those are really important moments for Vance. But I was also struck by him talking about his grandma having 19 loaded handguns in the house. His point was that she was protecting the family. We're coming a few days, though, away from a shooting, an attempt against Donald Trump's life. Guns are a big part of the story. Of course, the convention rallygoers were celebrating J.D. Vance's speech, but I don't know if the average American connects in the same way to what he was saying tonight.
Certainly, they're a part of the story, but they're not a part of the conversation at the RNC. We watched Katie Simpson the other day try to have that conversation, and it was shut down before she even got her first words of the question out. Richard, could we take a listen at a line of attack from J.D. Vance? Here's one.
Joe Biden has been a politician in Washington for longer than I've been alive. For half a century, he's been the champion of every major policy initiative to make America weaker and poorer. And in 4 short years, Donald Trump reversed decades of betrayals inflicted by Joe Biden and the rest of the corrupt Washington insiders.
The corrupt Washington insiders. So, Richard, what's your sense of this line of attack? I don't think anyone is surprised by it, but what's your sense of it?
Well, he takes 2 aims in one line there. Number one, he tries to portray the Trump-Vance ticket as a generational change, a different way of doing things in Washington. But he also, of course, took a direct dig at Joe Biden's age, which, of course, is one of the president's biggest vulnerabilities. J.D. Vance is a millennial. Joe Biden is pre-boomer. So there's a huge contrast in age, energy, and style between Vance and the Biden administration. So everyone was expecting a few shots at Joe Biden tonight, but clearly having that come from J.D. Vance, who's half Biden's age and talked about some of these policies that were enacted before he was even born, I think the crowd just ate that up.
Richard, he also, I think I caught him talking about NAFTA. Or USMCA, USMACA, whatever you want to call it now. What did he say, and how do you think Ottawa will react?
Yeah, he blamed Joe Biden for signing on to the trilateral trade deal back in the 90s. And as you know, that was one of the most contentious issues in the Trump administration and the Trudeau government. And I suspect ears perked up in Ottawa when he took aim at it again, because keep in mind, this USMCA review process is in July 2026. So these trade negotiators in Canada thinking that this deal has been done and dusted, they could be in for some turbulent waters if the Trump ticket wins in November, and they take a second look at it following their win, because there have been several irritants that remain unresolved.
Brian, some quotes from J.D. Vance on Donald Trump, and people have been talking about this since he was named, which seems like forever ago, but it was not. I'm a never Trump guy. I find him reprehensible. How did he go from that to someone who said he would have carried out Trump's request to overturn the 2020 elections? You know, one of his advisors said to us, well, look, he realized he was wrong about Donald Trump. But what actually happened there?
Right. In 2016, Vance told me that support for Trump comes from social anxiety. I think he was right then. That's still true now. People are afraid of losing their place in society, afraid they're being left behind. And Vance acknowledged that tonight. He said, disagreement makes us stronger. I feel like that was a wink and a nod to his own past criticism of Trump. He was saying, let's have the debate. But clearly, Vance, for political reasons, has fallen in line with the MAGA movement. It's the only way to get ahead if you were a conservative in the United States in 2024.
Tia, interestingly, so he was introduced, J.D. Vance, by his wife, Yusha Vance, very experienced lawyer. Again, Americans are just getting to know her now. What can you help, those of us in Canada understand about her and how she's being received by the Republican Party?
So yes, Yusha Vance is the daughter of Indian immigrants. She met J.D. Vance at Yale Law School. Sorry, getting my Ivy Leagues mixed up. Yale Law School is where they met and fell in love. Had a they mixed their religions in their wedding ceremony. She's Hindu, but she is conservative. She clerked for Justice Roberts, Justice Kavanaugh in the U.S. Supreme Court. She did speak. She introduced him tonight. I think it went over pretty well. I think the crowd there are some Republicans who were concerned that she may compel J.D. Vance to be soft on immigration. So neither one of them touched that at all really tonight. I think her job was to present herself as someone who could be palatable to mainstream conservatives. And I think, at least for now, she appears to have done that. But again, just by virtue of the fact that she is the child of immigrants, I think there are always going to be some Republicans who are skeptical of her and therefore a little bit skeptical of him.
Interesting. Richard, we've said it a lot, all of us have said it a lot over the last few days, that this event is not the United States. This festival is a Republican festival. There will be a Democratic festival as well. So it's sometimes it can skew your perceptions of what the reality is on the ground. And we know that there will be a post-convention poll bump. There usually is. But a lot has happened even before the convention with the assassination attempt, the J.D. Vance pick, the debate. Any indications, Richard, as to how this is genuinely playing out with the general voting population?
Well, we're in a country right now where politics are so divided, where half the country is supportive of the president, the other half do not like him. And we've just experienced 3, possibly 4 days, and if you include in the weekend, of wall-to-wall coverage of Donald Trump, whether it was the assassination attempt or leading up to this political leaven that we're seeing happening in Milwaukee. So I think we will see some sort of bounce in the polls, whether that's support for Trump or whether that's voters moving away from Biden with the troubles that he's undergoing right now. But we're already seeing the Democrats trying to fire back and mute this momentum that Trump appears to be having. Vice President Kamala Harris put out a video earlier today trying to label Vance as a Trump 2.0, suggesting that there's no policy daylight between Trump and Vance when it comes to important issues like women's reproductive rights, supporting allies through NATO, their war in Ukraine. So whether this will improve Trump's standings in national and state polls remains to be seen. But I can tell you the very first Trump-Vance campaign event will be in the swing state of Michigan. That's right next door to J.D. Vance's home state of Ohio. So perhaps part of the strategy is to have a hometown Ohio guy on the ticket, softening the edges for Trump to those suburban voters in Detroit and in Pennsylvania and so forth. Perhaps that will give Trump the lift he needs in those critical swing states, that so-called blue wall we've been talking about.
And as you talk about Kamala Harris's video, you know, we were all taking notes tonight, but so was Kamala Harris. So were the Democrats. So was the White House. Brian, what do you think they will have to take away from this speech tonight?
They're going to focus on the signs that the rally goers were holding up. You call this a Republican festival. Well, what were the festival goers chanting? They were chanting mass deportation, send them back. The signs literally say mass deportation. That is the weakest spot for the Republicans. That is the opportunity for the Democrats to exploit. But it is not, an altogether, it's not guaranteed that that's going to work for Democrats, because more and more voters seem to be coming to Trump's side on this issue. Here's the question I always ask when it comes to Donald Trump. Is any American waking up tomorrow and deciding for the very first time that they want to support the former president? It was so strange hearing the chants of 4 more years. Did you hear those inside the convention hall? 4 more years. But Trump is out of office right now. We're in an unprecedented situation where he's trying to get back into office after being rejected. And it's anyone's guess if that'll succeed or not.
Tia, we have just about 30 seconds left. Forgive me here. As this is all going on, Democratic heavyweight Adam Schiff has called on Joe Biden to step aside. Joe Biden's having a rough day, right? He's, now he's got COVID. More bad news for him at a time when he doesn't need it. What happens next with him?
I think we don't know, because after the debate, it looked like Biden was going to be forced out. Then he kind of fought his way back. Then things seemed cool. The assassination attempt on President Trump was just a few days ago. It seems like a generation ago. Now it seems like the rumors and the effort to oust Biden are ramping back up now that the Republican convention is drawing to a conclusion. But we have no idea where this is going to go. It's been nuts. It's been nuts. It really has.
Oh, yep.
Sure has.
Really You're not wrong there. All right. Yeah. Tia Mitchell, Brian Stelter, Richard Madan, as always, thank you very much.